Renewable energy is powering more of Australia than ever before. Renewables actually supplied a record 46% of all electricity in our main grid in the last 3 months of 2024. However, in January, those records have been smashed again. Coal has dropped below 50% here in Australia for the first time as solar power has hit a new record. But there's one thing people aren't actually paying attention to, which will actually drastically change Australia's grid within the space of, well, the next 12 months. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. I'm Sam Evans. You're watching The Electric Viking. Great to have you with us. If you'd like to become a YouTube member, I will have a video up there very soon within the next week, all about what I think are the best companies to invest in over the next 5 years. Rocketing power generation from Australian rooftops has driven down demand for electricity from the grid in Australia here to a fresh low, even as peak demand hit an all-time high for that time of the year. And this shows the increasingly extreme forces in play in Australia's transitioning energy system. An 18% year-on-year jump in rooftop solar generation in the fourth quarter of 2024 contributed to record low demand for power from the grids in New South Wales, Queensland, South Australia, and of course, Tasmania. Now, because of this massive increase, particularly in rooftop solar, prices on the grid actually sat below zero 23.1% of the time in December quarter, breaking the previous record of 19.9% set 12 months earlier. Personally, I'm certainly benefiting from that, I have to admit. I mean, over the last 3 months or the last quarter when I got my most recent bill, I was in credit by more than $100, and that's in spite of the fact that I charge my electric car all the time and I don't have particularly good energy habits. I mean, right now my air conditioner's on, and even though it's 12 o'clock at night, I run the air conditioners all night and I'm still in credit. I mean, honestly, solar is just insane. If you've got the right solar system, that is. I know a lot of people don't make the money I do on their solar systems, and I think that's because it depends on which company you use. If you want to use the company that I used, I make nothing by telling you this. I'll put a link to Resync Solar in the description below. Now, you can mention me, and that'll probably help you to get a bit of a discount. Just say we're friends. Low grid demand also means owners of large-scale solar and wind farms may need to cut back their output to save themselves from losses, and this poses challenges for the market operator to keep the system stable. That will change over the next few years. I'll explain why in a moment. In a landmark development, the share of coal power in the total generation mix in Australia sank below 50% for the first time in the quarter, when renewables supplied a record 46% of the national electricity market. Coal's proportion was 49.8%, with gas supplying another 4%, and solar, wind, hydro, biomass, and batteries the rest. Those numbers would be quite different, though, if renewable energy was not being curtailed, and if we could save this renewable energy and use it when we actually need it. And that's the point. A number of batteries that have been commissioned over the past 12 months has risen to all-time record highs. And over the next few years, our grid will change in ways that I think are not expected, are quite profound. We're wasting billions of dollars of electricity here in Australia, and many other countries are as well. But because of all these big batteries being built, that will change. We'll have all this extra power we can save and use when we actually need it. So the grid, right, it reached a record, right? We're looking at only 49% coal. But a lot of that coal is going to be pushed out by all these big batteries. And keep in mind, Australia's biggest coal power plant is about to be shut down. And in its place, they're building on the same location one of the 5 biggest batteries in the world. The share of renewables in electricity supply also broke records for a single half-hour period, peaking at 75.6% on the 6th of November, said Violet Mushalele, AEMO Executive General Manager, Reform Delivery. That drove emissions from the sector to record low levels, she said. Australia is relying on the electricity industry to help meet emissions reduction targets, including a 43% cut by 2030 from 2005 levels. That goal is underpinned by the aim to reach 82% renewable energy by the end of the decade. And that target, actually, we're on track as a country. If we continue doing what we're doing now, basically 2024, if we repeat 2024, Australia will hit 82% by 2030. It might even be above that. So it can happen. as long as this Liberal government doesn't get voted in and start cancelling all these projects and try to build nuclear power plants, which will take 10 to 15 years at best. And really, that's going to put us in a really, really bad position and bad situation over the next 10 years. The declining reliability of black coal plants was on display in the December quarter. They're a big problem. They're just breaking down all the time, with the availability of those generators sinking by 6.5%, said the Australian electricity market operator. Meanwhile, output from Victoria's brown coal stations, the most carbon polluting form of generation, dropped by 9.2% from a year earlier, hitting the lowest in history. And that was reported by reneweconomy.com.au as well. They said brown coal or coal power hit a new low in Victoria as wind battery records tumbled, and renewables peaked in Victoria at 95.2%. I mean, there's nowhere near as much sun as what there is in Western Australia or Adelaide or New South Wales or Queensland. I mean, I lived there for, I don't know, 35 or something years of my life. And yeah, it's nowhere near as sunny there. It's just simply a fact. And yet renewables hit 95%. And that's just the start. I mean, it's going to increase significantly to the point where 95% will be common. It won't just be a record for one moment in the day. We'll be seeing that month after month after month. So what's happened as a result? Well, prices have gone up for electricity. Why have they gone up? One reason is because some of these companies that have these big batteries, they're operating as peaker plants, and they are making huge amounts of money using software that's able to bid the prices up during certain periods of time. And honestly, it's one key reason why so many companies are building batteries in Australia, because they're making insane amounts of money selling electricity to people. My recommendation is try not to use them. Like I said, use your own solar system. And obviously you can get away from fossil fuels, mostly by having an electric car as well. Now, this gives you an idea as well of how much money you can make if you install a battery at home, right? The AEMO, so the Australian regulators, said on the 7th of November, prices in New South Wales were stuck above $14,000 per megawatt hour for 1 hour and 40 minutes. About 2,700 megawatts of the state's coal capacity was unavailable, and 2,100 megawatts in Queensland. So basically these coal generators, they're old and they're breaking down a lot. And then the batteries are going, these battery suppliers, they're going, oh, thanks, we'll operate as a peaker plant. People need us, so they'll bid up the prices really, really high, I mean, astronomically high. At these points in time, if you have your own home battery, you can make a lot of money. As long as you're willing to discharge the electricity into the grid, which it would make sense to do so, you can probably pay, potentially make hundreds of dollars for these weird isolated events. Federal Climate Change and Energy Minister Chris Bowen said the clear message from AEMO was that coal was becoming increasingly unreliable, forcing prices up and showing the need for more renewable plants and the transmission lines to connect them. The data confirms what we know. Unreliable coal is having a negative impact on energy prices. More renewables in the system bring wholesale prices down, and new transmission infrastructure is critical to keeping prices lower. Peter Dutton's plan is to scrap transmission investment and extend unreliable coal generation for decades so he can build the most expensive form of power available in the world, nuclear. That's the worst thing possible for energy bills, reliability, and the environment. He's right. He's 100% right. I mean, if you disagree with that, you simply disagree with economics and mathematics, and you must have a vested interest. I know someone who has a very strong vested interest. We had an argument. He was saying that nuclear is a great idea, that it can be built out quickly, which is obviously completely wrong. But I later discovered he was heavily invested in nuclear. So if you've got a vested interest in something, you can't really see something objectively. As you can see, Australia is well on track. Once we get rid of these coal power plants, electricity prices will go down, fall, and even if you don't have solar on your roof, electricity will become cheaper than ever. Now, if you believe Tony Seba, you probably should because he's smarter than all of us, electricity prices will hit marginal cost within the next 10 years. Marginal cost means you won't even think about it. The price will be so low that you won't even think about it as being a significant factor that will influence your decision-making or influence your life. That's where things are headed with a 100% renewable grid. And one of the key reasons for that is because for a 100% renewable grid to work, we need 200% capacity. So we need 100% excess And the reason we need that is because there are rare times of the year when there's no sun for, say, a week, there's no wind for a week, and all of a sudden we go, hang on a minute, we have no power. Well, that's when you need those 200%, that extra capacity, and it's very rare. It's only for a few percent of the year. So what do you do for the rest of the year? Well, you have all this massive excess capacity, charge electric cars, sell electricity really, really cheap, or you do something else. You create things like possibly make hydrogen, which you can export. Other countries could possibly use it for their own electricity grids. Anyway, there's all kinds of things you can do with all that extra electricity. And the one key takeaway is it will drive prices down.